Learn how to build a better sign and print shop from a few crusty sign guys who've made more mistakes than they care to admit. Conversations and advice on pricing, sales, marketing, workflow, growth, and more. You're listening to the Better Sign Shop Podcast with your hosts, Peter Kourounis, Mike O'Reilly, and Bryant Gillespie.
Hello.
Welcome back to the next episode of the Better Sign Shop Podcast. I'm your host, Bryant Gillespie, joined by Mr. Mike Riley, the Burrito Bunny. Is that what that says?
It's the Burrito Bunny. We can't decide.
The Burrito Bunny.
Yeah. I want to be both. Someday I'm going to show up in my bunny costume and the burrito costume.
You do have a burrito costume now.
Blow your
Totally
mind.
unrelated project, but I'm excited for that one too. Well, Mike, the last AI episode was rather ominous. We're going to try to stay off of that tone, but if we end up there, we'll see. In this episode, I think we'll just jump right into like what's happened since the last episode. AI is changing like super fast. I know you've gone down a rabbit hole, but I don't have a super structured outline. Maybe we'll just talk about where we're at AI February. We probably need to date this one, right?
Yeah.
February 20 or February 19th. My daughter's birthday is tomorrow. That's exciting. And then we'll just dive into like some of the tools that we've been using, because this shit is going to be outdated in 6 weeks again.
I was just going to say, refresh our memory for context. How long ago was it that we recorded the other one? It was only not even 2 months ago. Yeah, like
not even
6,
2 months
6,
ago.
7 months ago, 6, 7 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in that short amount of time, what
has happened to you, my friend?
Me? Well, I've like just completely like fully gone like tinfoil hat, like AI rabbit hole. I'm in so deep at this point that like I don't know which way's up. It's crazy. It's such an insane technology. Like when we did our last episode, I would say I probably kind of was a little bit more than a casual observer and using the tool every day, but just on the very surface level. And since then, I've really, dug extremely deep into the tools and a lot of, prompt building stuff and really trying to understand how the technology functions under the surface and what it does more. And the more you learn about it, like the crazier it gets. Like it is like a rabbit hole. It's like the farther you dig into it, trying to understand it and look for answers, and like the more you uncover, and it just continues to add, more to the rabbit hole. It's never ending. Like and the rate that it's changing and growing is mind boggling. I think what was it, 3 weeks ago that DeepSeek was released.
Yeah.
And
where it shows you the thinking behind it, which is
right.
super interesting.
Instead of just saying thinking, it actually shows you its train of thought, and it is so human-like. I mean, when I first saw, I mean, it's kind of like I'm used to it now, but when I first saw it, it was actually unnerving.
Right.
Because it was referring to itself in the first person, and it was an actual such a human train of thought, like stream of consciousness thinking. And to have seen, I think that was kind of like the aha moment for me when I actually saw what is going through its quote unquote brain behind the scenes. I realized this is something that's way above, I don't know, my pay grade, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, since we last talked about this, DeepSeek came out, OpenAI has released 03. Claude hasn't done anything. Still same old Claude, but they're still beating everybody somehow.
Yeah, it's still a very good model. You and I are very much like I feel like over the last 3 to 4 weeks, maybe last 6 weeks, like since you started diving into this a little deeper, like we're locked into this like hold my beer thing of like, it's like, hey, here's what I did today, and then you're like, no, wait, hold my beer. Have you seen this?
Right. Right before we started recording, for everybody listening, Bryant and I were just kind of catching up a little bit and talking about, like, my insane work schedule, and I'm usually up till 2 or 3 in the morning every night. And I feel bad for Bryant because I know when he sits down at his computer in the morning, he's got just like this waterfall of messages from me on Slack. Like, dude, look at this crazy thing that I found on Reddit last night at 2 a.m. At this point, he's just scrolls right past it. But I mean, I feel like. I can't remember the meme of the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, with all the pictures on the wall and the strings connecting. I mean, that's kind of how it feels, because when you start digging into it, it's such a revolutionary technology, and so I don't even know what the word for it is, but the more I understand about it, the more I realize it isn't a novelty. And it's not just a tool. Like right now, we want to look at it as, okay, it's a tool. It's a tool we can use to help us do our jobs more efficiently, and that's true. But under the surface, there's a lot more to it than that. It's more than just a tool. And I'm not supposed to make it ominous. I'm excited to see where that goes. But it is.
I mean, it's hard not to like wind up there, but hey, like I waffle back and forth between like this is. Like you first experience some of these things, like these new models, and you're like, holy shit, this is going to change everything. Then you get a little used to it and you understand some of the quirks, and you're like, okay, like now I can figure out which box to put this in. But
Mm-hmm.
when we were talking about this shit a year and a half, 2 years ago, though, like I never thought it would be this far this fast. So what's to say that it's not going to continue to just accelerate and get there at an even quicker pace?
I think that I think it is. I mean, I wish I don't have a screenshot I could share, but I don't know, maybe you can cut this into the video. I'm sure you've seen the growth curve of the intelligence of the models, and as it as it progresses, every model is released closer and closer, and that curve is essentially on an exponential, vertical incline right now. I mean, it's at the point where it's taken off like a rocket, and I don't, is it ever going to slow down at that point? I mean, I don't think anybody even understands how it works. So how do we know what the theoretical limit of what this thing's capabilities are?
Yeah. All right. So we waxed it like a high level. I like maybe we walk through like which tools are you using on a daily basis now, and then hey, like maybe you share one, I'll share one, we can go back and forth and maybe play it that way to try and like we could probably do this all day. The listener probably hopes to get some value out of this other than just listening to us wax poetically about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your main driver as far as AI right now?
That's a loaded question. I don't have one. I use literally on a daily basis. I use ChatGPT and Claude, and I have them both open on my browser always, and they're never closed at this point. I mean, that's to the point where I don't want to say I can't make a decision without them, but I find myself, I've sort of like gotten myself into the habit of using them to bounce any idea I have off of, whether it's a business idea or something I'm trying to design or what to have for dinner. I find myself turning to them as maybe like an advisor almost, or a peer that I trust to, give me objective opinions about something that I'm doing. But I find that, ChatGPT and Claude definitely give different responses. So depending on the nature of the question I'm asking it, I'll kind of make a choice between which one. And then I'm also using Midjourney a bit for image generation. But, to be honest with you, image generation is not, it's not where it needs to be, or where I think we all want it to be. It can create some really beautiful, amazing images sometimes, but as a more of a technical designer like me, like beyond ideation, it's not really too helpful. Like right now, it can't generate output that I can actually use for anything, but it can help me generate ideas. But yeah, have you been on Midjourney lately? Have you checked it out?
I have not.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it used to be you had to be on Discord to do it. Yeah, they've really improved the UI. They actually have their own UI now that you use versus having to go to Discord, which is a lot better, and it's got a lot of settings, and you can tweak the randomness and the how many hallucinations it allows and stuff like that. And it's better than it was, and the image quality's good. It's not that the images it creates aren't good. It just something as niche and technical as signage design, like I do, it can't come up with anything that's truly production ready, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it is great for ideation. But I think that graphic designers, at least specialized graphic designers, and logo designers too. I think branding designers, graphic designers in general, we don't have a lot to worry about anytime soon. Like AI is not going to take our jobs because it just without a truly human subjective element to it, I don't think it can ever fully reproduce what we see.
Right.
It's emulating it, right? That makes sense. But as far as like writing stuff, I mean, if you're writing copy for a website, business plan, anything like that, like it's unbelievable at that. And as time goes on, these models get better and better and better. I asked it to write a blog post the other day about using CorelDRAW to design sections for aluminum extrusions for like sign cabinets and stuff, like sign comp extrusion. I was asking it to help me with that, and it's just it's mind-boggling. Like it spit out a 3-page blog post that was so technically accurate, it looked like I wrote it, And that's something that's not like common everyday information. I couldn't Google that information and find it. So at this point, like
where's it at? It's buried in there somewhere in the machine, man.
I know, right? Like it's the ghost in the machine, right?
Well, so, let's zoom in on one specific thing. Like, are you going to ChatGPT and Claude, or are you using
both?
Like this TypingMind thing that you were.
Well, so yeah, TypingMind is the online platform that I use. It's kind of like how would you describe?
It's basically like so like looking at this, and I'm like afraid to share my screen because I'm gonna get robotic again because I got like 35 things going. But maybe we just weave this into the edit.
Do you want me to try and share mine?
Yeah, you try see if it works for you. Like I've got like $1,500 or $2,500 worth of cameras set up, and like I've got a fancy MacBook that's maxed out from 3 or 4 years ago, but it still just bogs down. It just doesn't like anything.
I'll bite my
probably
tongue.
all the cables and connections going. But basically, like TypingMind is what I would call it, just like a GPT like wrapper, basically, of like, hey, this is, you could pick back and forth between these different models. Like all these different models are in there, and it's nice from the perspective of like you just got one app that you're using that has all of your conversations and your threads, and obviously you've used it more than I have, so maybe share a little bit about your experience versus like the individual apps.
Yeah, so this one requires having an API account for whatever AI that you're using. So in my case, I've got a Claude AI account or API account, and then a ChatGPT API account. So instead of going to their web interface, like just going to chatgpt.com, I go to TypingMind here and select like I want to use GPT-4 Turbo, and that will access ChatGPT-4 just like I was on their website. But it's through this. A couple benefits to it is it's a little bit faster, especially with Claude. You don't run into messaging limits. Like I don't know if you use Claude a lot, but you don't run into a lot of. Do you ever run into the messaging limits on there?
Not usually, no. Like sometimes like it'll switch into like the concise mode, which is kind of frustrating, but
yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe it's just the peak time of day that I'm trying to use it, but it was almost always in concise mode for me. But I'd hit messaging limits where I had to wait 5 or 6 hours before I could even talk to it again, which was really frustrating. So using the API eliminates that. The cost is a little bit cheaper per chat as well. And then there are additional plugins and stuff you can add to this. One of the coolest things though that I really like. Let me see if I can find it here. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. Kind of forget where I'm at. There we go. So you can adjust for each different model or globally the temperature and top P, top K. All these sliders here basically control how accurate, creative it is, how much it hallucinates, how technical versus how freeform it gets.
Prose, like creative it gets.
Right, and then you can put your own. Let's see if I can expand this. So you can put these, kind of like instructions for it. Like, this is how I want you to respond. This is what I want you to do.
This is your instruction manual. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So you're kind of telling it how you want it to interact with you above just its default, setting, I guess. Which is pretty. And you can do all this in the regular web interface as well, but I think you have a little more control over here. So for one thing, for me, it's just a little bit more convenient to have it all in one right here. I've got my Claude chats and my GPT chats, right here together. There's not a phone app for this though, which kind of sucks because I use it on my phone constantly as well. And
gotcha.
you know what I mean? So that I either have to go to the website for it, or I just end up opening the Claude app on my phone, and then those chats don't show up here. So that's kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think where this gets interesting is for like sign shops is obviously like ChatGPT and Claude. I think they both have like team accounts, but I don't think it's like a shared workspace, right? It's just like hey, here's the team account, and I think this TypingMind does have like a team account where
it does
kind of
like
put a bunch of stuff together in one, and it has like knowledge base type stuff where you can upload documents and like add that for context and have it be across the organization, right? Because that's a struggle in a business setting is like, how do we do this collaboratively, sort of thing.
Right. I haven't played around with this because I don't have a team to share it with here. But yeah, it does. I remember seeing this when I was signing up for it. It's a paid add-on for it. But yeah, I mean, that I could see that being a barrier of entry to especially businesses adopting this. If you have a creative team or something, and you or just a copywriting team or a web development team or something like that, I could see having the ability to collaborate on these across multiple people and teams would be hugely beneficial. So that I think that probably is a selling point for a lot of people. But yeah, it's a pretty slick app altogether, and there's a lot of these. And TypingMind is just kind of the first one that I found when I asked ChatGPT what's the best AI desktop platform to use. And that's actually a good one. I hardly ever use Google anymore. I've just sort of naturally migrated to asking it of ChatGPT or Claude. But Claude isn't as good as a search engine as ChatGPT because it doesn't have internet access. But I find if I something that I would go to Google and look up, I look up on ChatGPT, and the answers I get are usually a lot more specific to what I'm looking for. And obviously, there's no, ads trying to sell me shit I don't want.
So I like obviously like I think we talked about it maybe in the last one or one of the previous episodes. Like I'm working full time at a company called Directus right now. That's unrelated to signage, but like one of the things that we're seeing, like marketing wise, is like Google search is still number one for how people find us, and then you've got like referrals, which are a big piece of like, hey, I worked for a company that used Directus, that used this previously, and I brought to a new company, or like somebody at work gave me a recommendation. But like behind that, like GPT and like the LLMs are like next as far as like recommendations, and it's crazy how much that has grown. Where it's almost like another layer of like SEO that I'm concerned about, of like how do you get your company indexed into these models so that like you come up in recommendations, right? And that's going to be for the sign shop owner, that's got to be like an important thought as well of like, how do I get access to this? Like when people start asking questions like who's the best sign company in Bluefield, West Virginia, which they
Yeah.
type into Google now.
Right.
But like how do I get my name surfaced through that?
It's a really good question or good point. I've never really even thought about that. But yeah, I mean, there's a I don't know if it's science or witchcraft to getting ranked high in Google searches. Like I don't think anybody knows that really. Talk about something that nobody understands behind the scenes. But I mean that's a massive industry, just SEO and trying to get people on the first page of Google. And yeah, like how on one hand nobody knows how the Google algorithm works or how that really happens, but I think we all know that it's probably money that has something to do with it. But is that going to be the case with AI? Like, can you monetize that? Is it a pay per play type of thing where the more you pay, the higher or the more likely it's going to be? How's that going to work?
I'm going to go for this and see if this actually works. If I get robotic, let me know.
So far, so good.
All right. So, it's been impossible to miss like the AI overviews from Google, right? So, like if you get like a search like this where it's like what is the sign company, right? It'll generate like this AI overview based on like results it's come up with. Now, as far as I could tell, it's still saying this is experimental, but when you start doing like sign company in Bluefield, West Virginia, you get like the traditional places widget, I guess you could call it, instead of like the AI overviews. So what I'm assuming is happening right now, because like ads and search are big Google business, especially local, right? It is refraining from doing like an AI overview that says, okay, here's the 3 sign companies in Bluefield, West Virginia, and who, based on reviews or something like that, and analyzing the website content, who you should pick. But, to me, it's not necessarily a stretch to assume that like Google may eventually do that, or somebody else will do that, or, people will just go directly to ChatGPT or Claude, right? And that's an interesting one. I've not actually done this really. Who's the best sign company in Bluefield, West Virginia? And some of these models are probably trained not to answer this, right? Yeah. So, I would be curious, like if you throw this through TypingMind, like what you would get out of it, or through like the API accounts. But
well, I've got ChatGPT pulled up here and just type that same exact question in there. Let me share my screen. I'll show you what it showed me.
yeah.
Oh, there we go. Who is the best sign company in Bluefield, West Virginia?
There you go.
That's what we got. So it kind of came up with a similar result to what Google did. Gave us a map and then a little brief.
Beckley, West Virginia. That's a good sign company. The old Beckley, West Virginia. Oh, that's the Fast Signs location. Okay.
Let me try that
All right.
same thing in TypingMind. I'm just curious if that's going to give us a different result. Change that to...
Yeah, and the distinction there is obviously like Claude is not searching the web, so it's like whenever they've done like the training for this, and like the system prompt is probably saying, hey, like if somebody asks for a recommendation and you don't have context, don't provide it. I'm sure you could. I've seen like the Twitter threads or the X threads where people like try to jailbreak the system prompts and get around it, but
Yeah, I've been successful at that a few times, to an extent. Like there's a limit to what I think you can realistically get away with. But if you talk to it, if you're really sweet to it, like it sounds hilarious and stupid, but if you handle it with kid gloves and you talk to it really polite, this is actually, I find this more true with Claude than ChatGPT. But if you're really nice to it, really polite to it, and ask things a very specific way, you can convince it to kind of skirt its rules a little bit to a point, and it's really interesting when you get to do that.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically asking it to role play a different in a scenario, and when it thinks it's pretending or playing and not actually being giving you a serious answer, sometimes you can get it to jailbreak itself, and it's fun. So I put that exact same prompt into TypingMind using GPT-4o, and
Comes back with something totally different.
something totally different, which is so weird. I mean, same account, same model, same everything. So that's strange. I wonder if the API has different.
Yeah, so like ChatGPT is like there's certainly like a wrapper around that that's using the APIs, but it's basically like its own service with its own limitations, and same for Claude, right? It, it's interesting though, like especially once you get into like the web search and the tool calling and like all of that stuff. All right, not to get too far off track. So let's circle back to like text generation. Like, what are you like? You're using this for copy on your website. What's your flow look like for that?
So I've got a kind of a project started in ChatGPT. Actually, I have one in ChatGPT and Claude, depending on kind of the context of what I'm going to be writing. But that project, which anybody who doesn't know about projects in any of these tools, a project is it's like a chat that that's kind of self-contained, and you can give that chat specific instructions just for that particular project. You can give it like reference files. So if you like a certain writing style, say, or you have a bunch of technical documents or reports or something like that you want it to use as reference material, you can add all of that to your project, and it, instead of just going out in the broad web and it's training, it will heavily look at and consider your project references. Oh, cool! You got one. Sweet.
Yeah. Let's go. Like, so I did that AI workshop like 8 months ago, and it's totally outdated. But like
Yeah.
I've got Claude set up, and I've got Bryant's Ghostwriter is the name of it, right? And again, just like you said, what this does, it's available on both ChatGPT and Claude, and like most of these have it now. But like for specific tasks, this is the best way that I've found to get great output. And it all starts with like the system prompt where like you're setting up the instructions, and like typically I'm leaning towards like the role play scenarios that you're talking
Mm.
about. Like, here's your role, here's your task, follow these guidelines, right? So for example, like the Bryant ghostwriter here is like, hey, you're a world-class ghostwriter, 15 years of experience. You create compelling content that educates and entertains. You will write whatever I tell you to, basically. And then you give it more specifics, right? And to get these rules, like the funny thing is, like you can get meta on top of meta on top of meta with it, and you can like take something you've written or take a transcript of you talking to somebody, paste it in here, ask it to analyze and give you like the tone and the voice and like the style, and then feed that back in, and you can get like so close to just how you write. It's uncanny, right? Where like you're asking AI to write something, and especially Claude, I find it's great at writing. Where I get really close to, I was like, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know how I would have wrote this differently if I was writing it, and I don't know if that's just like seeing it on the page already, but like I read it and I'm like, it's pretty close, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
like
It,
tone wise, use confident tone, be approachable, use plenty of real world analogies. Yeah, I've got like a very distinct style. Um, I try to like in emails or anything, I write like I talk. So that's what I've told it here. One of the other big like tips I would say, if you are using this for any type of writing that you're going to share, make sure you explicitly tell it, like avoid buzzwords, avoid marketing language, uh, call out some of the things like delve or revolutionize, streamline, like some of the cliches, like tell it not to use that. I've basically got this line in every GPT prompt, probably, of like avoiding prolix and lengthy explanations of basic concepts and stuff like that. Avoid like the stupid terminology. And then, like some workflows, I may even have it like a separate pass where like you tell it to write something and then come back and say like now like humanize this, like break a few rules just to get it to sound more like
Oh,
me.
that's a good idea.
But
Um,
as far as what I've given this, right, is just a a sample article. Like this is something that came from the Directus blog that we wrote, um, and just giving it a sample of the writing. And within that, like once you do it, it's pretty close, right? So I can go in here now and say write an outline for a blog post about. I think this was trained on like technical content, so like the five tips for getting more SEO juice for your website, right? I cut you off there. What were you about to say?
oh no, I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah, so like headline wise, right? Like 5 SEO tips that actually work and won't make you feel gross. Like, and that resonates with me. Like that's something. That's how I would. That's almost how I would phrase something. And this is just the outline, and then to complete this thought, and I'll let you talk in a minute, Mike. Basically, like I would like if I was trying to get an article out of this or like copy for a landing page, right? Then you just proceed to either like, hey, I'm good with this outline, um, or make whatever edits you want to the outline, and then let's proceed with the intro paragraph. And you take it brick by brick instead of trying to get like a one shot type of scenario, because that's where you get better results, or at least in my experience.
Totally agree. Yeah. And it's, I mean, if anybody's tried to do this in any AI app, a year ago, let alone like 2 or 3 years ago, you can see how much better it is just by watching that write that. I mean, it's, it used to. We were talking about this the other day. That was a Jasper AI.
Jasper, yes.
Yeah, and it would write like 2 sentences at a time, and
It was outrageously expensive as well.
It was, yeah, and you could get it would spit out 2 sentences at a time. They were barely coherent sentences, but we were still like, oh my god, this is amazing. And now, I mean, look at it now, But what I was going to say is, with the project like you just showed there, I've actually got a project with a bunch of prompt examples. So whenever I need beyond just like a surface level type question, if I need it to do something really in depth for me, like write a blog post or, that I was trying to get it to do that 3M vinyl color to Matthew's paint color matching thing a couple weeks ago. Stuff like that, where it's really more of an in depth thing you're working on, you can have it write your prompts for you. If you kind of give it, this is what I'm trying to do, write a really extremely detailed, comprehensive prompt for Claude or for ChatGPT. I'll tell it, like I'll tell Claude, write a prompt for ChatGPT. Weirdly, it doesn't get jealous. I kind of thought it would.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like I really like, not joking. Like I'm surprised it doesn't say like something about why are you using another AI.
Right.
But it'll spit out this really detailed long prompt that you can copy and paste, and I find that goes a really long way as well towards getting better information out of it, or more concise or detailed responses. So I do that a lot. I have it write my prompts for me a lot, or rewrite my prompts. Maybe would be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the. I it would be I'd be upset if we didn't like just touch on like the effect of something like this. Like I guess this delves into the
Doom and gloom.
like the doom and gloom, right? Obviously, like the speed and ease at which you can create content like this kind of sucks on some level, right? Because like I know probably a lot about SEO just because of my work and like the like websites that I build and things like that. But I like on some other topic, like I could presumably get you 1,000, 1,500 words that make you think that I'm an expert in
Mm-hmm.
about 5 minutes or less with one of these tools, right? So what does that do for like writers? Obviously, huge problem if you are a writer and you're listening to this and that's your profession. Big issue. But like business in general, like if somebody can just whack-a-mole this stuff out, article after article, like does the entire web just become noise and nonsense?
You know what? I think a lot about that, and it's a really it almost feels like we're standing on the edge of a precipice, right? And like we have a choice: do we turn around and go back? Do we go forward and fall? Do we go to the left? I think if I was a copywriter, there are definitely some professions right now that I would say, not to be like a fearmonger, but they should be afraid. Like they really should. And I think that copywriters are probably at the top of that list, or pretty darn close to it, because at this point, like the writing is better than 99% of copywriters out there. Like that's the cold hard truth about it, is it's a better writer than people are anymore. And that's going to be a difficult thing for a lot of people to come to terms with. For that type of business or that profession, copywriting, I think it's gonna really quickly. I don't know if decimate is the right word, but it's going to weed out the marginal performers. Yeah, and only the really, really good ones are going to be left. And the ones, copywriting, I think, is probably going to be more about mastering prompts than it is going to be about, at least marketing copywriting and business copywriting, not necessarily writing the Great American Novel. But, some, like I said, like I think graphic designers, I think we're safe for a while because it lacks the subjective human element still. I don't know, researchers. I don't know if you've really had a chance to look a whole lot at the new O3 research model that's only available.
Like deep research.
The deep research, yeah, on GPT Pro, the $200 a month model. I don't have that, although I've been really tempted to subscribe to it for a month just to play with it. But I've read some of the deep research results that it generates, and I mean we're talking very, very detailed, extensive PhD level research papers that it generates, like 100-page documents, like not just a brief description. Like it's generating massive, massive documents that are so exhaustively researched, and it can generate something that would have taken a PhD candidate a year to write. It can do that in 15 minutes, and it's going to be better. So you know what I mean? I think it's gonna shift the way we consume knowledge, I think. And there's a part of me that's trying to remain really hopeful and think that this is going to push humans to be better at what we do. It's going to ultimately give us more accurate information versus, humans right now. We don't have guardrails the way an LLM does, so we can publish say anything we want. Like look at the state of the world right now. I mean, will it rein in misinformation? Will it make it worse?
Like to play devil's advocate, right? There's always been like those content farm websites that push out like drivel anyway, and like obviously
the history of the stop sign.
Yeah, like that was a popular one for sure. But like, yeah, it's like the great power, great responsibility thing. Sure, like you could use this, and when it comes to like Google, obviously they've got both hands in both jars, I guess. Of like, hey, we're doing AI research, but we also like get funds from like ads on keyword searches.
Yeah.
And it's like, which one do you prioritize? And like, which, like for,
it feels like
one
somebody,
question.
So I was gonna say, somebody made the analogy I saw the other day of that exact thing. Google funding AI research, and I mean, if you were to bet money, I would put all my money on Google because they've got the deepest pockets by far of anybody in this game. But somebody made the analogy the other day that like Google funding AI research is the equivalent of like pharmaceutical companies funding cancer research. Like
right.
There's a significant conflict of interest there that shouldn't be ignored. In Google's case, anyway.
But it also kind of handicaps them as well, right? Of like, hey, if you are one of the leaders in AI generating content, and like the new Google models are phenomenal as far as like the context that you could put into it. It's like vastly, like you can load like 1 million words into well, I don't know if there's a million, but like you can load a ton of words. Like you can load a whole book into some of those new Google models and ask it to summarize or write a blog post outlining, etc. Uh, but like if their models are like some of the leading generative models, like how does that like you've got to account for AI generated content in search results, right? Like how do you square the two?
It feels like a snake eating its own tail, you know. Like it's definitely weird, and you know that makes me wonder, like, is how much of our own data is Google? I mean, think about how much data Google has, right? Like between Gmail and Google Docs and Google Search, you know, every keystroke that's ever been entered into Google, they own, and they can use that to train their AI model that ChatGPT can't and Claude can't. You know, whether they are or not, we'll probably never know. I think they claim they're not, but imagine you know, the additional level of information that they have access to by that. I mean, that's almost a scary thought when you think about it.
Yeah, it's
But
nuts.
yeah, but I mean, it raises a good point that it maybe back to that precipice I just mentioned. Like maybe the bigger precipice is, well, who's going to own this technology, right? Like, is it a race to eventually be one single unified AI to rule them all, and there's no longer GPT and Chat, Claude, and everything? Is there just going to be one eventually, or will there be multiple like there is now? Will there be more? But who's going to own them, and who's going to say what the guardrails are as far as what kind of information they disseminate? And is this technology that belongs in private hands or in the private sector, or is it technology that is so powerful that it needs to remain open source and free and available to everybody? Almost like the internet, you know, like nobody owns the internet because nobody saw it coming. But I feel like if there was an opportunity for somebody to buy the internet, you know, early on, you bet your ass it would have happened, right? Like, of course. So hell, I mean, Elon Musk just tried to buy OpenAI last week for what, $98 billion, and Sam Altman told him he was
he's trying to raise what, like $500 billion is what Sam Altman's trying to raise.
Yeah, they're at like $200 billion now for their whatever Starship project where they're building a new AI infrastructure. But
yeah,
you know, and rumors are that Elon tried to buy OpenAI to force their board of directors into keeping it open source versus going private. Yeah, which I don't know. Maybe that's a smart move on his part. I'm not sure yet, but I feel like the billionaire class is probably hustling right now to figure out who can own AI in some capacity. Who
gets the control of this? Yeah, and that's the race to me. Like for us, like the way that I'm looking at this is like, you know, like I don't know that we're climbing up a mountain or going down a mountain, because like a lot of my tasks are getting a lot easier with these things, and I can do more of it. Like the way I'm looking at it is like, let me get the noise or like the busy work out of the way. Like if these tools can help me with a lot of that, so that I can get back to what I'm good at, which is like, you know, at the core, I think one of my skill sets is basically like identifying a problem and then just being tenacious about solving it, whatever that is, whether it's, you know, writing a bit of code to solve a problem on a website, or like trying to figure out how to price a set of channel letters with a spreadsheet or in Shopbox or whatever, right? And that's like, these things aren't totally autonomous to that point where you could just say, here's the problem, go solve it. So on that respect, we're okay. But it feels like I don't know, like the best analogy for it, of like, I'm coming down the mountain like through some fog or something, and I can't see exactly where we're going.
Is there a cliff in front of you? Is there a meadow?
Right. It feels like things are getting easier, and you know, but also like, you know, there could be like a desert between me and where we need to be. You know, you don't know.
Yeah. And there probably is. I mean, there's so much unknown. I mean, ultimately, when the people that created these technologies openly say, like, we don't really know exactly how it works, I think it's not a red flag, but I think it's something that should give us all pause and be cautiously optimistic as we hike down that mountain through the fog, because we don't know what the next step is going to be. And again, I'm trying not to be super political about this, but politics are becoming part of it. And there, we can see what's going on in Washington right now. And people are jockeying for power around AI. I mean, if you look at Zuckerberg and Sam Altman and Elon Musk and
Sure, 100%.
Peter Thiel, I mean, they all have their hands very deep in political world now, and that's 100% driven by the potential to make profits off of this AI technology. So it's definitely something that nobody should ignore, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think
Like, how do you? It's hard to like square the two, right? Like at a high level, it's like, hey, I get like super concerned with it, but like on a day-to-day level, it's like I got 3 kids, I've got a full-time job. Like we do the podcast, I do some consulting work. Like we've got it. You've got a couple different revenue streams that you're managing. Like, at some point you're just like, I'm going to use the tool like that's in front of me to get the job done and like stop thinking about it. Yeah.
Dude, it's a godsend. It really is. Just for like administrative stuff, day-to-day stuff, writing tasks, having something to bounce ideas off of. Like, there's a lot of like staunch anti-AI holdouts out there. Like, I'll never use this. It's going to take my job, and I refuse to support something that's killing industries. And I understand that sentiment, but it's not realistic. I mean, people said that about steam engines or the internal combustion engine, about it's going to take the steam engine locomotive engineers' jobs or whatever. Every time there's new technology, it changes things, and some people might lose their jobs temporarily. Some people might have to learn new skills. I mean, that's just kind of how evolution in the world works. To not embrace it in some way, I feel like is extremely foolish, because if you don't, the people that are embracing it are going to leave you in the dust really quickly, like real quick.
It's a
and
shit.
you're just making your life harder by not using it. Like it's here to stay. People who don't believe it's here to stay and they think it's a fad or something, how'd that work out for the people that said the internet was a fad? This isn't going anywhere. So to actively avoid using it and not embracing it is just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, it's not a wise move to make, I don't think, at this point. I mean, just have to be responsible about how you use it, but it will make your life so much better. It really does. Like, that's the crazy thing about it, is it, one of the things that I've found completely like unrelated to business with AI, but I use Chat a lot. I call it Chad for some reason. I use Claude a lot, like a personal advisor, almost like a therapist. I mean, I'm big on like the whole mental health thing. Sure. and taking care of your.
We still
your
got
mind.
an earmark for that episode somewhere.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'll wear my bunny suit for that one. It's great as like a therapist if you're struggling with something, if you're having a bad day, if you're, I don't know, you're dealing with trying to change habits around something that you do, or like I'm trying to go to bed earlier. I'm tired of being up till 3 a.m. every night. What are some actionable things that I can do to get to bed earlier? If you prompt it right, it's an incredible. Like, I don't know what other term to use other than like therapist like that. I mean, therapist kind of makes it sound like you're pouring your soul out to it, and
yeah, no, I get it though. Like, for me on the just on like developing websites, right? Or like we've got a couple projects in the works here, obviously at my full-time job, but like this sell more signage thing that I've been working on. Like I'm not like a senior level architect, right? Like I know enough to like develop a solution, but like some of those questions are about like, hey, what's the best language to use for the back end of this, or what's a mental model or a pattern to use for like how to set up something like personalization on a website, right? It's nice to have somebody that can instantly give you an answer, whether it's, we could debate whether it's a great answer or a good answer or a shitty answer, but like closing that feedback loop of like, hey, I have this question. I don't have the knowledge on it. Let me talk to somebody who has more knowledge than me on it.
Yeah, it's like having an expert available 24/7. In most topics, or if not an expert, pretty damn near an expert, close enough to an expert that you can get very far along on what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, hell, we use it. Like, 2 days ago, my wife was like, I don't know what to make for dinner. All I have is like some chicken breast. Like, what do I do? I'm like, she's like, I don't. Start pulling out recipe books. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'll ask Chat GPT, and I'm like, give me 25 recipes for chicken breast that are outside the box, not super perfunctory and every day. I'm happy to run to the store if I need any ingredients. The shit that it spit out, like crazy recipes. I mean, it's just stuff like that. Like, that something so simple and small. Instead of pulling out 20 recipe books and spending the next 2 hours pouring over that, you had 50 recipes to choose from in literally 45 seconds. Is that going to destroy the publishing world?
I don't know. That stuff is helpful though. Like like outsourcing some of the decision making.
Yeah.
You got to be careful not to outsource too much of it, but that's probably
well,
another
do you
topic.
like why? Like what if we lighten our? I mean, think about Albert Einstein worked in a patent office so that he occupied his brain with just boring, mundane tasks throughout the day. So his, in the background, his brain could synthesize information and work on problems that he was working on. And they say that was part of the key to his brilliance, was that he immersed himself in something very boring and work a day. So would that benefit humans to like offload as much of our mundane workload, like cognitive processing, decision making, basic stuff like that? What do I eat for dinner tonight? Just let ChatGPT tell us what to do. Does that benefit humanity? So then we can think about like creative things and like solving humanity's bigger problems. Or does that just usher in the era of Terminators? Like, like if we give over to, like if we let it think for us completely.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be fun to do like an episode where it's just like Chat GPT roulette, where you just like do something like this, where you just like, hey, I want you to open up Chat GPT, and you're gonna like, we're just gonna pick a message, right? Like, just for context, like, I was working on a tool for like my job, my full-time job, and I wanted to have like an ASCII art bunny as part of like a command line utility.
Your
Right?
job,
So
I have to say, your job is fucking ridiculous. You get paid to do this.
well, I mean, this is just like a small portion, right? And it's like, well, like I wanted to have an animated bunny that it like blinked and said a message when you ran this thing. I like blending all the different experiences of like design and UX, but also like human interaction or user experience, like all of that. Like, the way it manifests itself sometimes is like, hey, create some ASCII art bunnies that I can use, right? But like, this is the type of shit that it's very quick to, okay, now I got this. I can put this in there, right? I've got 3 or 4 different varieties. Some of these are pretty wild as far as what they come up with, but this was something that I had to solve, and this was like 2 minutes to solve it versus like Googling or me like noodling in the text editor of like trying to craft these characters. So that would be a fun one to do, but.
And that's honestly, like, that's a really great use case for it. That it's just a mundane task that doesn't really necessarily involve a ton of skill. It's just time consuming to find that crap. It's out there somewhere, but
Yeah. All right. Let's bring it back to the tools. Like, there's a couple that I wanted to cover. I know you mentioned like DeepSeek. Like, that's one you should probably like experience on your own. Maybe we'll just do like I got this thing up, and we'll just see if I've got. Let me just pull up that last one that we did, right? This is, if you've not used DeepSeek, the hosted version does send your data to China, so you might want to be cognizant of that. This
use
is
it
one
while
of
it's
the.
still legal.
And don't put anything that's going to jeopardize national security in here. But for this type of stuff, right? It's very interesting to watch it kind of think through this, right? So I'm toggling this. I think that's how you do it. I'm asking it to write an outline, and now it gives me like this stream of consciousness of like how it's thinking, and it's very much like a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, so the user wants an outline for a blog post about 5 tips. Let me start by breaking down what they're asking for. Maybe I should consider the target audience, main challenge, blah blah blah. So like it goes through this whole exercise.
Wait, scroll. See what it says. Wait, the user might want. Like, what amazes me about this is it's not linear, right? Like you would think that, okay, it's a computer, it's a robot, like it's just going to go in very linear order, but it doesn't. You can see it thinking through things and saying like, wait, that doesn't make sense, or wait, this might be a something that potentially could affect the outcome of this, so I should maybe look at it. Like you can see it step back and consider itself or consider what it's doing as it's doing it. And that to me is what the absolute mind-boggling part about it is that I did not expect.
Yeah. Hey, wait, the user might want the outline to be SEO friendly itself. So like here it comes with, like the listicle style outline. Here's the 5 tips to boost website SEO juice, plus a bonus, plus a conclusion. Yeah. So it's super interesting. I think one of the other interesting ones was I thought this was super interesting where if you give it like a misspelling, right? What is the capital of West Virginia? So like it goes through this whole process. I noticed that Virginia is misspelled. Or it should be Virginia. West Virginia is the capital. Now I know the capital. So like it goes through this whole like interesting process to like
From what I
at one point
remember.
even talking about the Civil War, right? Like to get there, and then like it does get there eventually, but
Yeah.
it's just wild, man.
Yeah. It is. It is really. It's really fast. I've seen a few examples too where people have put in like math problems where depending on your interpretation of PEMDAS or which what do you perform first, the multiplication in parentheses or and there's two different schools of thought on how to answer that question. Like if you give it one of those types of questions, watching it think through math problems or more technical things like that is really wild too, because it does some strange considerations. I don't know. It's really this was, I think, this seeing how DeepSeek thinks. Like I think I said this earlier. Like it was a major aha moment for me when I saw that thinking process and realized
Right.
that it's not an algorithm behind the scenes like Google. That's I mean this. It, the more I understand about how it functions, the more I understand about the physical server farms and the neural network and the way GPUs process these requests, and the more I'm convinced that we've essentially figured out how to make a synthetic human brain, and it's just kind of still in the infancy learning phases, because when you see the way something like DeepSeek thinks through problems like that, and you look at the way it's taking individual words or parts of words and parsing them and turning them into tokens, and then the way it processes information and thinks is at its root exactly the same way we think.
I mean, like a complicated mess that's hard to like unpack, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm more and more convinced that this literally is a brain, just in a different form than the brain that's in our head. I'm convinced though that the structure functions exactly the same way. The way it thinks and arrives at conclusions is exactly the same way that our brain thinks, as far as sending neurons around, and nobody really knows how our brain thinks either. I genuinely believe that this is it's an actual brain. Like I don't. At the end of the day, like what matters, what the brain is made of, or what the brain does, right? And if you look at what it does, there's very little difference between what it does and what our brains do. The biggest difference is
it makes all these connections. Yeah,
right. It's just not in a physical biological body that it has this brain body connection like we do. Therefore, it has no sense of self or self awareness, obviously. But I think it thinks. I think it actually thinks. I really do.
I think it thinks.
I think it
That's
does.
the title of this episode. It's alive. It's alive.
But that brings up then the really creepy question: what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be? What does thinking mean? What does that make it sentient? If it's thinking, sentient does that have to mean that it's in a physical body and aware of that self, or does it just mean that it processes the information and stimuli around it?
I don't know. That feels like another fucking AI episode.
That's some deep shit.
I love these, man. It's good to do this. All right.
Honestly, have we even talked about signs of the sign industry at all?
I'm not sure that we have. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna run through some of these. If you're consuming the audio version of this, I would highly recommend you check out YouTube. I know Mike mentioned the image generation side of it. Still kind of for what we do in signage, it's not super helpful. Maybe for ideation.
We should clarify. It depends on what you're doing with it, right? Like if you're doing a lot of digital printing and wrap design, or you're doing a wall mural and you need more of I've definitely used it to generate some absolutely phenomenal photograph type images and paintings and things like that are used in signs. It is phenomenal at that. It just like it's coming for copywriters, it's also coming for artists,
photographers.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, as far as more vector type things and technical things like that, it's nowhere near where it would need to be useful in that realm for sign designers. So just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't want to sound like I was completely trashing its output. It's just not perfect.
No, and this is a good example. For us, these are blog posts on the Directus website. These are all AI generated, and the logo is obviously it's a hare. It's not a bunny, but we got this bunny theme going on, and it makes good thumbnail images for this, and you can easily create a theme off of this. I think these are all generated using Midjourney, but it's great for stuff like this, supporting elements for either blog posts, websites. If you're not using Midjourney, you could check it out. Mike can give you more details on that, or we can add that in the show notes. One of the other tools that I've been using, and you will have to sign up for a GitHub account to do this. The tool is called Replicate, and it's a very developer oriented tool at first once you get into it, but it does have playgrounds where you can go in and test out some of these models. Now, these are open source models that, if you're super into AI, you can download these and you can dive down that rabbit hole and learn how to set all this up locally. For me, I just like playing around with these in their playground, or checking out. One of the nice things about Replicate, and I can't remember, I may have showed some of this in the last one, where I can go in and train my own model using what they call LoRa.
Few of these, yeah.
And this one is the flux model, where basically I can enter something in here. What's a good sign description? Create a modern
something like a monument sign, a backlit monument sign with a brick base.
Monument sign with a brick base for Mike's barbecue. Brick base. Right, and this is we'll see what happens, right? For 4 cents an image, see what comes out of this. And, okay. I don't know where fasty.com is coming from here, but you can see these models are getting really good with, I'm almost scared to put that into the search bar. But
one of the best hallucinations.
If you're listening to this, it's basically a monument sign with what looks like some channel letters on it, some decorative elements, and a brick base. And it kind of looks like it's shot with a macro lens or something that makes it look like it's a Lego type of scenario.
Yeah, in all honesty, that image is beautiful. It's a really, really, it's a decent image, and in the design of that sign isn't terrible. I'd probably do things a little bit differently, but so like from an ideation standpoint, like I have designer's block and I'm not exactly sure what I should do. Like it's neat. It'll throw out ideas at you that you can kind of run with a little bit, and I use it for that a lot.
Yeah, it's a magic of like prompting. If you go in and you actually train one of your models, like you give it reference images, so like you could train this on your own work and potentially use it to generate similar concepts, or there's probably some other more devious ways to use it, but it is something that I use quite a bit to generate like supporting imagery, and it's good for that.
I've never played around with this one. I know you're always raving about it. I think I'm going to try subscribing to this and see if I can train it on my design work. I've got thousands and thousands of images I could feed into this thing as training material. I'm curious if I was to do that, how close it could emulate my design style. Okay, for part 3 of this discussion, I'll report back on that.
Yeah. One of the other models I've been using on here is called Recraft V3 SVG. And basically, this one is very interesting because it will give you a high-quality vector output. It is much harder to control. So, again, like with most of the recommendations we've already made, like you need to, like if you're going to try to use this, like shrink the scope and like go like, hey, I need an element, whether that's, whatever it is, versus like give me like a full logo, because it's not quite there yet. But the nice thing is, like, I think I shared a few of these with you. Like the images that it generates are SVG, and the lines are very clean compared to what I've seen inside like Adobe Illustrator when you like generate vectors.
Yeah, you sent a few of these to me, and I actually was like, it blew my mind how good the vectors actually were. There were almost no weird stray points or odd, funky jaggies or anything like that, like you would get with an auto-traced image. The ones that you sent me were every bit as clean as anything you would download from like Adobe Stock or iStock or something. Like they were as perfect as it could get, which was really surprising to me. Like I didn't think it could do that, with vectors.
Yeah, we'll see what I can get out of this. Again, this is just off the cuff. I fully plan to prepare all of this, but maybe I'll put that in like the next AI workshop that we do. Right? So hey, this guy is kind of missing he's got like a turtle nose thing going on, but
Mitch McConnell.
But as far as what's generated here, right? This is pretty solid. I mean, considering that it's SVG, and I could take this and like quickly clean it up and edit it. It's amazing that you can do shit like this.
It's amazing that is almost usable. Like you could cut that in vinyl right out of that without any modification or without any cleanup at all. Like that, it's pretty incredible. On-demand clip art basically. Like it's wild.
Yeah, I'm not gonna open Illustrator because then it will really go robotic. But just trust me on this. This is an actual SVG file that is downloaded.
Can confirm.
Insane. What are the other ones that I wanted to touch on? I don't want to get into Replit just yet. NotebookLM.
This one's cool.
This one is like super interesting. One kind of like use case I would harp on this is like training new people. Like if you've got somebody new to the sign industry, like NotebookLM from Google, basically you can add sources to it and it'll basically create Mike and I like rapping on a specific topic for you for like half an hour's worth of like podcast. So like training content, I had like that immersion style of training, especially for like hiring somebody new in as a CSR or maybe a sales rep that doesn't have deep industry experience. With very little input, you can go very far with something like this, where like remix a podcast on channel letters or something like that. Or,
I was thinking about this as a supplement to a blog on a website or something. Like nobody reads blogs, right? Like, but I feel like if somebody that I followed for whatever reason had an interesting business or blog that I would want to read, I just don't want to sit there and actually read it. Like I feel like you could put that blog into Notebook and create, embed a that audio file on your blog as well, and say, would you rather listen to this blog, and actually have a podcast episode where they're discussing that blog post, not just reading it verbatim. I mean, I feel like that'd be really cool from a marketing standpoint, and people would be more likely to continually go back to your website to listen to the latest blog post.
I could just generate this whole conversation based on your blog post from, I saw it somewhere. Where was it? 2019? Managing a remote design team.
I should update my blog.
Yeah, so this will send me a notification, and when this gets done, it'll be a full conversation between two people, like discussing the content of this like blog post in probably a lot more detail than what Mike has gone into on his blog post.
Yeah.
So,
and it'll sound just like you and me talking. Like, well, not like you and me, but like at least you would never know it wasn't a conversation between two people.
If that's the cliffhanger we'll leave them with at the end. Like, is this actually Mike and Bryant doing the podcast, or is this just our AI avatars?
Are you able to train it on specific voices? I haven't really dug that far into this, other than just
so the NotebookLM, I think you just kind of like the voices that it uses. It just kind of gives you what you get, you get what you get, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's another tool that I have used called. We'll just rattle off all these right here at the end. 11 Labs, and basically like this one is uncanny that like they have voice cloning, which used to be like super expensive and like crazy. I can give this probably like a minute and a half of your voice, Mike, and it will come out with something that's pretty close in the end.
I want to see that.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment and catch up.
Yeah, you're.
And then we'll
doing
try
the robot
to do
again.
this again. Hopefully, all that came through. Okay. Are you hearing me in real time again? Close enough?
Yeah. I didn't lose your audio. You're just a little dancy.
I got it. What are the other ones that I wanted to talk about? NotebookLM. 11 Labs is an interesting one. One other, this one's not quite AI. It's not like an LLM. And it is a little pricey for like a smaller shop that's doing, if you're doing like less than 500,000 a year or something, you're kind of limited on like your tool budget. But this app Clay, basically what it is kind of like Google Spreadsheets, but for like outreach and sales and like enrichment. So imagine like you've got a list of contacts in a spreadsheet, and you push a couple buttons, and you can enrich all those contacts and even generate like personalized messaging for those contacts and connect that to tools like Zapier or other places. So that's what Clay is. It's kind of like a mix between Airtable and Google Spreadsheets or Google Sheets, but also with the ability to like take an email address, find the person on LinkedIn, grab that data, generate a personalized message to that person based on what you found. And, they've even got tools where you can actually send those messages out. So like sales wise, like go to market, like revenue ops, those are all terms in the tech industry. But like if you've got an outside sales reps and you want to feed them like relevant leads with relevant information, Clay is definitely a tool to check out. I don't think I've ever showed you this one either.
No, I've never seen that one before, but that's really cool. I can think of several sign companies that sales departments could use that right out of the gate. It's pretty slick. It is kind of pricey, but I mean, for a bigger shop, that's if your shop has a sales team, that's just a drop in the bucket. They're $150 a month.
Yeah, if you've got outside sales reps and you need to like feed them leads and potential sales versus kind of the inbound model that most shops follow, this is a good tool for that.
Yeah.
And then
what about Perplexity? Are you using that a lot as a search engine?
I haven't.
Oh, did you have it open already? I didn't see it.
Yeah. I I think it's an interesting one, right? Because it like the claim is like, hey, it goes out, grabs all the sources, and gives you like a nice summary. Um, and I think it does that better than GPT for some use cases.
Because
Um,
it's intended to kind of be an actual search engine or like as a replacement for Google, right? Is that my understanding?
yeah, it's basically what it is. It's like, hey, this is the AI search engine. So like, what's the best? Let's just try that, right? What is the best sign companies in Bluefield, West Virginia? And that's not great grammar, but like it goes out and there's Better Sign Shop. We're number one in Bluefield, West Virginia. So again, a Better Sign Shop, technically not a sign company. We serve sign companies, but I do get the list here. But this is again, what makes these different? What makes these different? Let's ask it that and see what let's make these
What's
different.
make
The main difference is Lamar focuses on, is this helpful? Maybe, maybe not. I think it depends on what you're trying to get out of it.
I feel like it, like we were talking earlier about Google. Like I could see this being helpful because you don't know on Google anymore what's paid ad and what's legitimate organic search result, something like that. Like I feel like this just sort of like strips all that crap out of Google searches and just gives you only the context you want.
The nice thing about this is it's like citing sources, so at least you can kind of
Mhm.
like verify some of the information of like how did it synthesize this, right?
Right,
Looks
right.
like a lot of it's coming from Yelp or the Yellow Pages, which in turn like these are obviously like SEO optimized pages, and it's searching some search engine, whether that's Google or Bing or something, and then summarizing the results, right?
So
So
yeah,
that's
so is it actually giving you legitimate search results, or is it just
I,
synthesizing illegitimate paid search results?
right. Yeah, like most of these are from Yelp, which, it's a local search, so maybe that's why, but it's something interesting to explore in your own market. Like, I would definitely be like a takeaway. We'll save like the three takeaways at the end of this one because we're already way long, but yeah, I would be running queries like this in ChatGPT and something like Perplexity and seeing what comes back in your local market and just seeing number one, like, are you even remotely close to the top of the list that it comes up with?
It's an interesting one. I see a lot of people using Perplexity, so I feel like there's something to it that hasn't clicked with me yet. I need to try it again.
All right. Last, but I don't even know if I want to get into this one. Like, we're already like an hour, 20 minutes. Maybe we save that one for something else.
Which one is it,
Um,
Replit?
Replit. This is the one that I just put you on the other
We
day.
got to show it. We got to show it. It's so cool.
Okay. All right. So Replit, and there's a whole slew of these now, which, as a person who does identify as a developer, or at least capable of doing development, these things are insane to me. Where basically it's like an AI agent that will generate whatever tool that you ask, and Loveable is one that's more like non-tech oriented. So like if you don't fashion yourself a wannabe developer or somebody who doesn't want to get too far into the weeds, you can try Loveable. So that's just lovable.dev. And basically, you're interacting with ChatGPT sort of thing, but it's actually generating a full working app for you that you can publish and share, which is super interesting. So,
Yeah, and I tried Lovable out recently just to see what it could do, and I'm constantly converting dimensions, right? Like 127.34. I need to figure out what that is in fractional feet and inches, right? So my calculator is always up and by my side, and I must convert 50 dimensions on a daily basis on average. And it's tedious, and I hate doing it. So I had Lovable write me a little web app that I could, plug in whatever number it is, and it would just do the conversion for me automatically. And I could click a copy button, and I can paste it into CorelDRAW, and it's done. And the conversion super fast, super simple. And nothing like that existed on the market at all that I could find. I looked everywhere, and I would have been willing to pay for it because it would have saved me so much time. But within an hour on Lovable, and the majority of that time was just kind of like tweaking and fine tuning the appearance of it. So I had this
Making
functional
it beautiful.
calculator. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I use this thing every day. I think it's a great example of how, like we were talking earlier, the app development world is probably going to change drastically, because there's no longer a need for somebody to make that product and sell that dimension conversion product. I had a very specific need that would help me make my job easier, and in an hour I had a tool that I can use for it. I made my own tool,
Yep.
and somebody else's needs might be slightly different than mine as far as converting dimensions, and they can build their own tool that works just for them, that does just what they need it to do. I think that's going to be a really revolutionary thing. That is, when more business owners kind of wrap their head around how this works, and realize the value that brings. I think this part of it, these little app generators, is going to be mind blowing to people.
I guess I spoke too soon about Loveable.
Oh, Loveable.
Appears that one's
Is
appears
it
that one's
not able
broken.
to fix it? Because usually it's able
It
to.
will. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually it's able to resolve it if you just say this, fix this error, which is kind of neat. It's actually neat to watch it troubleshoot itself. And I had to do that a few times when it was doing my little app, and it worked through the problem and
Like
figured it out.
the interesting part here, right, is this is actually generating like source code that you could take and run somewhere else. And I don't know if this thing will actually be able to write itself and like actually show this. It's not coming up with anything. I don't want to waste too much more time, but considering this is one of the examples, I'm kind of disappointed this one didn't work right out of the gate. But it basically it's writing code for you. So it's kind of nice for like simple apps like Mike is talking about. I wouldn't try to replicate something like Shavox on here. Like you're going to get frustrated, especially if you're like a non-developer. The other one that I do think is more interesting, of like for a technical person or more technically inclined. Again, like you're still going to be like looking at some code. Is this is called Replit. So Replit is basically it's like a full-on development environment, but they've added this agent to it where again I could just chat with this and say, okay, we're creating a. I didn't even honestly, I didn't even give it this prompt, right? So again, if you're listening to this, I was trying to show this to Mike, and I said, okay, like Mike is a freelance sign designer. I want you to build a freelance sign design collaboration web portal platform. It's like 7 words, right? That's what I gave it. This agent goes in and creates a scope of work based on that. And then it starts knocking this off one by one, basically autonomously. Like I never had to touch any of this. And let's see if I can actually get to the. I'm gonna hit run and see if we can actually see what it built in like 10 minutes for you. I'm gonna restart the server. What is this doing? Oh, good. I've broken all these. Let's fix this thing. Good job, Brian. Let's let's demo this.
Well, I think this is actually kind of good to show people, because this is part of it. I mean, you're going to have to troubleshoot as you build this. I mean, it'll do the troubleshooting for you, but you do kind of have to like push it and hold its hand, like, hey, this isn't working. Can you find the error and fix this for me? When I was playing around with this, every once in a while I'd get hung up on something, and I had to kind of show it that it was hung up, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it is cool that if something goes wrong, you're not on the hook to try and figure out what happened.
And restarted start application. Restarted start application. Of course, this is not gonna work either. After I talk this shit up, it's the way these things go. Thinking deeply. Thank you for thinking deeply about the problem. Basically, this was a super lightweight application that had like a job queue. But the interesting part is like it spins up the infrastructure for you as well. So like behind the scenes here, where do I go to the database? Oh, the database is paused. Oh, that's that's the issue.
Oh.
So like I'm not on a paid account. Um,
I've got a paid account. You want me to share my screen and show what?
yeah.
Because I had it doing the
like,
same thing.
Yeah.
Hang on here. Yeah, I think I used the exact same prompt when you shared this to me. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah. So like you actually got to like a login page and shit.
yeah. I've got. See, that's probably gonna do the same thing to me now. Let's see. How do I web view?
Hit run up there at the top and see what it does. And that should I want to say it shows in that web view pane.
There we go. User error. Okay. So yeah. So I can log
And
in.
yours actually, oh shit, okay. You got way farther than I did. You spent more time with it. So it creates a new project. There's the project.
Yeah, so that's as far as I got with it, but I've got a login page, I've got a dashboard that'll show you all your projects in a card view. Some filters here, new project button, some basic stuff. I mean, it's not like this is a functional app or anything, but this took 20 minutes to do, and just I told it what to do, and that's what it did. And as far as I just stopped because I was just kind of playing around with it to see what it would do. And I mean, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like this isn't something where like it's going to build out an entire app with one prompt in an hour, right? Like if it wanted to build out an entire truly functional project management tool that has a lot of bells and whistles, and maybe not to the complexity of something like Shopbox, but something that's still a full-blown app, you're going to have dozens and dozens of hours in it still. I mean, it's not going to be fast, but you won't have hundreds and hundreds or thousands of hours in it like if you were building it from scratch.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and like being able to see where that's going to go as like a developer building stuff is interesting to me. But also, there's this interesting like space of like you mentioned of like, hey, we need this app to exist, or even stuff like integrations between applications where I could leverage a LLM or like an AI to build that for me instead of spending $25,000 to have somebody build that integration is super interesting.
Yeah. Did our
All right.
did our NotebookLM thing
Did it
get done
finish?
crunching?
Yeah.
Are you
We'll
able
have
to
to
share
show you.
audio through this?
Yeah, I don't know. Could
We're
be
gonna find
interesting.
out.
Click to load the conversation. How do I share? Can I share audio? I don't think so. I can upload a potential file. I don't know if I can make it listen to the computer audio or not. If I let me
When you share your screen or share that tab, I think when you share, it gives you an option to share audio, that tab audio as well. I feel like I saw that.
I can download the audio. Let's see. Stop share. Where's the share button at now? Share screen. To share audio, share a tab instead. Okay. All right, let's see if this is going to work. Can you hear that, Mike?
No.
No.
Can you hear it?
I hear it in my microphone or in my headphones. Yeah. We'll just share this in the show notes. No big deal.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. We need an AI podcast producer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, probably.
That probably exists, actually.
I'll just stay on. Yeah, I'm sure it does. All right, hey, like we're an hour and a half in. Like we could keep doing this for hours. I feel like this is a good stopping point. We've hit on a lot of different facets. I feel like this needs to become like a reoccurring thing every couple of months to like try to keep up to speed.
Yeah, it'll change.
Always good to catch up. Any parting shots? Like
it's it's an overwhelming topic. I don't even know where I think that I genuinely think everybody really should embrace this and dedicate some time to learning it and understanding it. Hop on YouTube, watch some AI, introduction to AI videos or basics of prompting, learn learn prompting, learn the art of prompting, get really good at that. And, I think when people really start to understand that part of it and play with it a little bit more, they'll recognize how powerful of a tool this is and how much it has the potential to make their lives easier if they, approach it with an open mind.
I like it. Very, very diplomatic.
You said no doom and gloom, so I'm trying to.
No doom and gloom. I mean, yeah, like these tools are super interesting, right? Like, if I was putting an ROI on like the time I've invested in these tools, I would take like the advice of Mike and I and like skip like some of the deep rabbit hole stuff and just like figure out like what are the use cases. I would try to figure out like what are the use cases that I can leverage this for without a ton of investment, as far as like personally hours and hours and hours. And I'm like super deep into it. I've dragged Mike into it. Yeah, it's super interesting, but also I'm not building and selling signs on a daily basis anymore either. So like I can imagine like if I wasn't at my computer all day, every day, it would be hard to have this depth with it and know what's good and what's bad. So I would, start somewhere, obviously, but
I would encourage anybody who's, if you're dealing with some sort of a predicament or business problem you're trying to solve or whatever it may be, something related to your business, just ask Claude or ChatGPT, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm trying to figure out. All you have to do is say, this is the problem I'm trying to figure out. Help me solve it. You don't even have to necessarily ask it a specific question. Let it have a conversation with you. Just start having a conversation with these things and see where you end up. I think that's kind of like the best way to, maybe to learn about it or to get more comfortable with it is just to start talking to it about whatever it is that's on your mind. As strange as that sounds, strike up a conversation with your computer. And I think most people will be really pleasantly surprised at where it goes. And they'll start, the gears will start turning and they'll start to see, I could use this in this part of my life or in this part of my business, or I could use it to do this for me. And
yeah, that is true. Like the deeper you go, like the more like you're like, oh, hey, I could see a use case for this or a use case for that.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, like I don't use it just as a business tool. Actually, in all honesty, I probably use it more as a personal tool than a business tool at this point. And I use it as a business tool a lot for writing and things like that. But it just anything. Where should I go for dinner tonight? What should I have? What should we make for dinner? What's whatever. It's incredible to have this thing in your pocket that you can ask a question of. I mean, hell, I could be at a restaurant and I'm like, I don't know what that is on that menu, and I can take a picture of the menu and ask ChatGPT like, hey, what is this? Would I like it? And it like it's amazing. Just stuff like that, like that you don't think of at first, but the more you use it, the more you get comfortable with it, the more you realize like, shit, this thing is like a life assistant, and
for $20 a month for most people.
Yeah,
is the insane part.
Yeah, well, hell, for free if you don't want to pay for it. I mean, you can get this out of it for free, but paying for the the paid models is definitely worth it. I recommend everybody pay for it, just to help fund the cause, if nothing else.
All right, that's all I got to say about that, Mike. Always a pleasure, man. Let's do this again. We'll have to get that that mindfulness, mental health like episode like fleshed out, and I want to find an expert for that one. But
yeah, I think it'd be a really good one.
Yeah. Hey, this has been great, man. What am I supposed to say at the end of these things? If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, we're looking for super interesting stories from shop owners, sign industry experts. Definitely hit us up. hey@bettersignshop.com. We do have our Facebook group for shop owners only. Make sure you check that out. Just look for the Better Sign Shop community on Facebook. I don't particularly like Facebook, but you guys do. And that's where everybody is at. So that's where we hang out. Lots of great resources and connections there as well. That's it. Roll credits.
Boom.
If you liked this episode, make sure you hit subscribe to get all the latest episodes and check out our website, bettersignshop.com. Get free resources and helpful tools on growing your shop. Thanks for listening.